Consequently, it was a misunderstanding, a disappointment, a delusion that the youth used those certain words, to suffer, to desire sufferings. If one were to repeat his words to him and say, "You indeed chose the right words," and then explain to him what these words implied, then perhaps that pugnacious youth who wished to challenge the world to battle would lose his courage. He would perhaps, instead of falling in battle, succumb to the suffering. Alas, for the fact of being willing to suffer and to choose sufferings. That is a wish that never originated in any human heart. He who believes that merely deceives himself. In order to apprehend the thought of suffering and the joyful gospel of suffering, in order to endure suffering and actually receive benefit from it, in order to be able to choose suffering and to believe that this is the wisdom of eternal happiness, the human being needs a divine guidance. It can never occur to the natural man to wish it. It must first be preceded by the most profound change in a man, before he can believe this mystery of suffering. He must first be laid hold on, and then be willing to learn from the only one who did go out into the world for the purpose of suffering, with the choice and the demand to wish to suffer. He went out into the world, but he did not go out in the same way that a youth goes out from his father's house. He went out from the Father in heaven. He renounced the glory which had been his from the foundation of the world. Aye, his choice was everlastingly free, and he came into the world in order to suffer. Of him, of the Lord Jesus Christ, it is said, "Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience from the things which he suffered." Hebrews 5:8. And it is these words which we shall take under consideration as we reflect that even if no man, as he is in conformity with his nature, can wish for sufferings, it is still joyful to know that the school of suffering trains for eternity. When it is said of a human being that he learned by what he suffered, then this expression contains at one and the same time something inviting and something forbidding. The inviting thought is, he learned. For it is not that men do not wish to learn. On the contrary, they are willing to learn, and are specially willing to have learned something. They would prefer to learn everything very quickly, but if it so be that an effort is necessary, then they are also willing to exert themselves somewhat. If, however, it is necessary to learn suffering slowly, but certainly also to some purpose, then they become instantly impatient, and if it continues a long time, then they become, as the language satirically expresses it, impatient to some purpose. But if suffering is to be the schoolmaster, the instruction, then they entirely lose the pleasure of learning, since they believe that they are already clever enough, and clever enough to perceive that one can also buy wisdom too dearly, because they are not, according to a rational estimate, immediately able to think through the suffering and understand its benefit. That is, if the suffering is not greater, more earnest, heavier, more difficult than its benefit, which the understanding can immediately comprehend, then the suffering is not the instruction. Then it is the instruction which has its hardships and its suffering, which is certainly something quite different